What's up, guys? Welcome back to our podcast, The Court of Heaven and Hell. I'm Lauren, aka Heaven.
And I'm Ellie. I'm also known as Hel.
And if you don't already know, we are a book podcast that focuses on different romantasy series and novels. Currently, we are focusing on A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. Today, we will be continuing our coverage with chapters 16 through 21. The episode will include plot summaries for each chapter, discussions about characters, foreshadowing, themes, and world building before we get into our theories and Mass-verse connection. With that being said, at this time, I want to go ahead and give a spoiler warning. If you are not up to date and have not read all of the books in the ACOTAR series, this is your time to bow out and maybe go watch one of our different videos on different series. If you have read all of ACOTAR, you are good to watch this video until we get to our last section where we will give another spoiler warning to let you know that we will be talking about other books in her universe.
Please see our show notes for content and trigger warnings. We are an explicit podcast for adults. Also, want to give an additional trigger warning. We will be talking about a graphic scene this week that takes place with a violent assault. So if you don't want to hear about it, rehear about it, maybe skip this episode. Check out our past episodes where we deep dive into other Sarah J. Maas books and other popular romantasy novels. Lastly, take some time to rate and review us. Or if you're watching this video on YouTube, please like and subscribe and let us know your thoughts in the comments. And now to get into Wings and Ruin. Starting with chapter 16, Rhysand and Feyre show Lucian to his room for his time being as Rhysand teases him that Lucian is at a time of need. Feyre is strict with him, telling him that he cannot winnow, see Elaine, he must ask the servants for everything, and if he wants to leave the House of Wind, he must brave the steps down to the city. After they tell Lucian the rules, they leave him and head to Amren's loft to meet with the inner circle. Major info dump incoming. We finally get a big political meeting, and the inner circle discuss what is to be done next with the war coming. Feyre's information about Dagdan and Brannon confirms what the inner circle suspected about the King of Hybrid's army. They are working with other powerful territories. Feyre suggests it is time to call in Miriam and Draken for help, but Azriel already has. Their land, known as Kriti, was abandoned, but Rhysand doesn't believe it is because they were running from the war. The lands of Hybern's wealth has been diminishing throughout the centuries, and because of that, the citizens there have grown into resentment. They wish to have human slaves again and look at themselves like humans are lesser because their king has cut off trade route and grew those ideas into them. This means that the citizens of Hybern are for the war and want the wall to come down. Hybern wants to make an example out of Prithian for what happens if you side with the humans. When Feyre was gone, they planted lies and truth into territories on Hybern's side, and in turn, they have upped their defense on their own walls instead of Prithian. These territories are now scared of others attacking them, so they won't attack Prithian, at least not yet, buying them some time. Since the wall has cracks in it, they are wondering if the cauldron is weaker than it used to be, since the King of Hybrid is making it seem like the cauldron can only destroy the wall from its cracks. They have an idea to patch up the holes with Feyre's help, and Amren suggests that Nesta and Elaine help as well since they are cauldron made, but Feyre says her sisters play no part, and which in turn Amren says she's being like Tamlin.
Oh, burn.
Mor and Rhysand sent back at Amren, but she says that at least Nessa and Elaine need to help with convincing others to join their cause. Feyre agrees with Amren and says it will be their choice, but she will ask them to help. The meeting ends with them finalizing their plans, patch up the wall ASAP, fight the war before any other territories join Hybern, and get the cauldron. Rhysand says he has an idea and is sending out invitations to all the High Lords for a meeting in 2 weeks to see who will stand with them. Chapter 17. The letters to the High Lords are to go out tomorrow, requesting a meeting. Feyre and Cassian get back to the house and discuss what happened to Nesta and Elaine, which Cassian said he'll never forgive himself for because he made Nesta a promise. Everyone except Elaine has a family-style dinner together. It starts off awkward with an exchange between Nesta and Mor, but then Nesta and Amren bond over their similarities. Lucian feels out of place, but asks if Feyre plans on hiding her powers at the High Lord meeting because he thinks his father would join Hybern just to get his powers back from her. Azriel and Lucian decide to meet soon to discuss everything in the Spring Court. Rhysand ends the chapter with that there's also another meeting that needs to be had. Chapter 18. What Rhysand said is suggesting going back to the Court of Nightmares to meet with Kier and request his help. War is uncomfortable with this, obviously, but also mentions their war band called the Darkbringers fought in the last two wars and were as worse as their enemies. Cassian and Farah plan to meet the next day to train, but she says she wants to learn to fly. On the topic of training, Farah asks Nesta if she'd be willing to train with Aaron to help patch up the holes in the wall, and she says yes, as long as the King of Hybern and the Queens die at the end of the war, but she's not willing to tell her story to the High Lord at the meeting. After dinner, Rhysand and Feyre go for a walk throughout Velaris, which is mostly repaired from the attack on it in Mist and Fury. Rhysand confesses to Feyre he thinks Nesta is difficult, and Feyre says she shouldn't have asked her that in front of everyone else and that she's always been a private person. He apologizes for insulting Nesta to Feyre at the meeting at Amren's earlier in the day, and Feyre says she's sorry for snapping at him and that she shouldn't undermine him. He says that she's allowed to challenge him and question him, and they end that with agreeing to not undermine each other in public. Since they're on the subject of honesty, she voices her concerns about working with Kier and that maybe it's not worth getting his help if it hurts more. Rhysand says it is worth it for his troops, which can help them win the war. They contemplate the upcoming High Lord meeting and how they will have to be around Tamlin, who probably hates them, and Tarquin, who has blood rubies for them. Feyre questions if they can trust Lucien right now, and Rhysand explains how war is a game, and a difficult one at that, which Feyre tells him she will fight with everything she has.
All right, chapter 19. After a lazy yet eventful morning in bed with Rhys, Feyre has him take her to the sparring ring. Cassian is already there waiting, and Feyre can sense that he is upset with her. After doing some basic training, she finally asks him what the issue is. He is still upset with her for the way things went down at Hybern. He tells her that both her and Rhys lied to the inner circle by concealing that she was High Lady and explains why it would have made a difference. He says, like Rhys, she is too ready to deal with everything on her own. He explains that as High Lady, she is all of theirs to protect, and that in the future she cannot pull stunts like that. He's already said as much to Rhys, and after their heart-to-heart, none other than Nesta shows up to join the training. But her and Cassian immediately begin bickering, much to Feyre's annoyance. She reaches down the bond to Rhys to try to get him to come save her, but he's in a meeting and sends the Shadow Singer instead to begin their training early. Ass takes her to the shore of the mountain lake and tells her Amren will be by the ring to save Cassian soon enough. After a few moments of silence, he tells her she'll need wings if she wants to fly, and jokingly asks her if he should turn around to give her some privacy. She says no, but still stalls for a while longer before finally overcoming her hesitancy to access the power gifted to her by Tamlin and growing her wings. Asriel tells her exactly how to make them, coaching her to make certain changes until she has a perfect set of Illyrian wings. The feeling is foreign to her, and Asriel tells her it was the artist's attention to detail that helped her so much. He tells her that the first rule is to keep them off the ground, not only because they're lazy, but there are many things on the ground that can hurt the sensitive wing. The first thing she is going to have to work on is strengthening her back, thigh, arm, and core muscles, so basically everything. She will need to focus on training with Cassian to increase her strength, but for the rest of their time together, he has her practice simply folding and unfolding her wing. She starts to wonder if it's a waste of her time. Chapter 20. Back at the House of Lynn, Rhys takes a very sore Feyre down to the library to do some research. He tells her about the great libraries that existed before the war and how humans were denied access to keep them from gaining knowledge and power. This leads Feyre to ask about half Fae, half humans, and Rhys shares that it did not end well for most of them. His father had himself denied entry into Velaris to any of them, and when Rhys took over, it was too late. Many of them were beyond his help. She asked him if they were able to bring the wall down this time. Will Velaris be open to them? And without hesitation, Rhys declares that Velaris will indeed be a sanctuary open to those who need it, no matter how complicated of a transition it is. Feyre sees a hooded figure clad in pale blue robes similar to Ianthe's waiting for them and tenses up. Rhys introduces her as Clotho and tells her about the priestesses who work at the House of Wen, saying they are unique. Rhys asks Clotho if she was able to find the text he asked her for, and she silently responds, moving her head and going off to retrieve them, leaving Feyre to take in her surroundings. Noting the sheer size of the cavern, she asks Rhys what is at the bottom, and he shares that he once dared Cassian to fly down and see. He did, and came back up quick as lightning and never shared what he saw, telling Rhys some things are better left unseen and undisturbed. Clotho leads them to a reading area about 3 levels down where a stack of papers and tea and biscuits are waiting for them. Rhys thanks her before she points to several passages in different books, bringing her hands to Feyre's attention. After she accuses herself, Reese tells Feyre Clotho's harrowing story. Long ago, she was brutally hurt by a group of males. They cut out her tongue and repeatedly smashed her hands while simultaneously healing them so they would set that way to prevent her from sharing their identity. Moore found her and brought her to Rhysand, who was able to identify them by going into her mind. Moore hunted them down herself, and when she returned, she stayed with Clotho in the library, helping her heal. They attempted to help heal her hand, with Rhys offering to take the pain away while they did, but in the end, she could not endure the mental and emotional aspect of it. She has been in the library since, and the other priestesses who reside there all come from similar backgrounds. The library is their sanctuary, and only they decide who comes and goes. Those who do visit are required to take binding oaths to do no harm while there. Reese himself spent a good amount of time there in the weeks after Under the Mountain, and he tells Feyre it belongs to her now, too. She knows he doesn't just mean as High Lady, but as someone who knows trauma herself. To get away from the distraction that Feyre is to him, Reese winnows down a few levels and begins his research while she stays and begins hers. After a couple of hours of researching and comparing notes, they come to the conclusion that while most of the scripts contradict one another, the wall was never meant to last. Reese tells Feyre that their chances are slim in winning in an army against army war with Hybern. She asks about if he went head to head with the King of Hybern, but he says the damage would be catastrophic, especially if he used the cauldron. However, the King of Hybern would most likely never let it come to that, with him having a better chance of beating them with numbers. Reese tells her if it did come to that, though, he would take the brunt of it if it allowed others to stand with them. This angers Feyre as she feels he shouldn't have to do that, and she says he doesn't have to do this alone. He asks what she proposes instead, and she reveals her plan to involve the monster Prythian, beginning with the bone carver. And finally, in chapter 21, leaving the library, Reese goes off to find Cassian, who will escort Feyre to the prison, and Feyre goes in search of Amryn and her sister. She finds them in a room simply staring at each other and questions Amryn's training method. She snaps at her that she's training her to shield her mind in preparation for their visit to the Court of Nightmare. Feyre tries to sneakily gather some information about the prison and the monsters that live there, but Amryn is testy and tells her off. Later at the townhouse, most of the group meet for dinner, and Moore seems to be on edge about their planned visit to the Court of Nightmares the next day. Feyre heads to bed to rest for the harrowing day ahead of her, going to both the prison and the Court of Nightmares. In her sleep, Feyre begins to have a nightmare, something she has not seemingly had in a while. She is under the mountain again, but this time her sisters are there too. Nesta is in place of Claire, and Elaine is roasting on the pit. She turns to see Reese being led down a hall by Amarantha and begins screaming. She wakes to Reese hauling her out of a dream, demanding her to breathe and comforting her while she gathers herself. When she's finally able to move again, she reminds herself that they're out. They survived. She swears she will never let anyone hurt him or her sisters again. That was a lot, but let's go ahead and get into some character discussions, starting with our side characters. Lucian definitely takes a little bit of a step back in this part, but Lucian's still around and we do love him, but I would say that he is still laying it on thick when it comes to Feyre. Oh, I understand why you chose them. Why would anybody choose the spring court when you could have all of this? Like, when it's so beautiful here. It's no, dude. She chose them because they treat her with respect and kindness and as a person who can make their own decisions instead of as a little toy that does whatever they tell her to. But other than that, I do think that as he's sitting there and he's having dinner with them and he's seeing their customs and like just how laid back and casual everybody is, he's like starting to even understand, like, okay, I get it. This is more like a family and less like a political, like, we have to keep up appearances. Everything is, what are they going to think of us? What are they going to, they don't care about that. If you want to show up in a red ball gown, cool. If you want to show up in fucking leather pants and slippers, cool. Nobody dictating what everybody's doing. They're just chill. Reese doesn't sit at the head of the table. He's not worried about his masculinity. I want to sit next to my wife. I don't really give a fuck if you sit at the head of the table or not. Like, it's just a fucking chair, dude. So I think that like those things are like why Lucian is starting to understand, okay, I get it. Maybe it is a little bit of a better situation and vibe here than it is at the spring court for sure.
He's probably damn, I grew up in the autumn court and spring court, and that place ain't it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm like, I should be able to go and sit wherever I want and wear a t-shirt if I want, okay? And if I wanna wear a dress, I can. but not
Right.
every day. No one I'm like, people who dress in ball gowns all day probably don't want to.
Yeah. I get it if it's, oh, this is like a super special political meeting. Like even Thera and them admit, yeah, there's a time and place for that. But when you're just at dinner with your family, just having a meal and sharing your days and talk, like shooting the shit with each other, why do we need to be dressed up? Who are we putting this on for? Who in this room gives a fuck about what I'm wearing? We're just friends. There is no hierarchy. Now, when if you go meet the fucking King of England or whatever, yeah, you probably are going to dress up a little nicer. But this isn't that. Like, Tamlin has them coming to fucking dinner in ball gowns for Lucian, Feyre, and Tamlin to just sit there and look at each other. Oh, the weather was nice today. And it's like, why are we doing all this? It's fake. It's fake. And they're the Night Court, the inner circle is real, and they're a family. It's not just some political group that like all has to be wary of each other and shit. And so I love that. I know that if I was gonna be spending my time with one or the other, I know which one I'd pick.
Same. And also to mention that in these chapters, Rhysand says about Lucian, quote, "There's a reason he had a fox mask."
Mhm.
So Lucian has some shit up his sleeves I think we're gonna get hopefully later on, if the book ever comes out.
Yeah,
Trying to not be salty, but it's hard for me not to be. But
I get it.
yes, I'm like, okay, maybe we can learn a little bit more about, what's going on with Lucian and why he was having a fox mask that whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Lucian's
yeah, Lucian is the shit. I think he's definitely, like, more sly and cunning than we've gotten a chance to really see, just because, like, they were cursed and so much was going on with them, and then he was trying to help rebuild the Spring Court, and he still wasn't like they weren't really interacting and doing stuff with other places, but there's a reason that Tamlin made him emissary, right? He's like Asriel to Tamlin. That's how I take it. Like, he's probably not a straight up spy master, but he probably is a lot more sly and cunning. And it's getting master of whispers, just like knowing what's going on, ear to the ground, being more than just what you appear to be. And I could definitely see that for our boy Lucian. Like I said in last week's episode, there's also a reason that his brothers were wary of him and wanted to get rid of him, even though he was like seventh in line for the throne. And that's because they thought he would actually make a good High Lord. So, like you said, Lucian definitely probably has some shit up his sleeve, and we will find out eventually, whether it's 2 years from now or next year. I don't know, but hopefully we find out sooner rather than later. But speaking of boys that we love, talk about Cassian and Asriel.
in Cassian and Asriel. They're in these chapters a lot. They don't have, have significant parts, but not too much. There's still a little bit in the background, but for Az, we get a reminder that he was locked up in his father's cage until he was 11. So he didn't learn how to fight or fly until after. And that's why Azriel decides to train Pharaoh because Rhysand and Cassian both literally learned how to fly when they were little babies, when they had wings. But he had to teach himself pretty much at an adolescent age. So he offers to help her, and obviously it works eventually. But yeah, Az is also still that more a little bit.
Yeah, it's very clear that he's still into her as of
Yeah,
right
he
now.
just stands in the corner and stares at her.
I felt bad for him at that one part where I forget what she said, but she dismissed him, and I was just like, "Poor ass." But at the same time, let it go, baby. It's been 500 years. Like she clearly, it's if it was gonna happen, it had happened already. Okay, come on, like move on. There's a gorgeous girl staring out the window in the next room. Like, James spoke it. I don't know what to tell you, but it does hurt that he is like clearly never going to get what he wants from Moore. But Moore holds on to that a little bit, I think, which is what I will admit, at least at this point, is shitty of her. It's just
Mhm.
be real with him and just tell him that it ain't going to happen instead of stringing him along and trying to use him to come to your side when you want shit. That's not cool either. But anyways, yeah. And then Cassian has a funny, like, cute moment with Thera in this book where it's he went, he saved her in the last stretch of chapters. They're so happy to have each other back and everything's friendly. But when he gets her out on the training field, she's, dude, you're mad at me. Like, I can tell. And he just tells her, like, it's bullshit what you and Reese did. We all had a right to know that you were the High Lady. And she's like, why? What does that change? And he's because when you're just Reese's mate, then it's Reese's privilege to defend you and make sure that you're taken care of. And nobody wants to step on his toes. But you being High Lady of the Night Court puts you in a different like bracket. And now it's my responsibility, your Az's responsibility, more and Amarin. So if something were to happen to you, that doesn't just affect Reese and fall on Reese. That falls on us because why did we let you put yourself in that situation? Why were we not there to have your back when you needed it? And it's because you withheld that information from us. We didn't even know. And so they have a really cute friendship moment. And of course, I would have protected you as just a friend, as just like the person that Reese loves. But it's just like a different level of respect that is there when you're like the literal leader of our court. And so they get to the bottom of that. And I love that they worked that out. And I just love how I don't even know. He's just so funny. I'm not going to talk to you about it. I'm going to beat it out of you. Not literally beat it out of you, but the shit out of you and make you realize you don't do that shit again. Reese and you both always want to fix everything yourselves and not lean on anybody for help. And that's a fucking problem. We're your friends. We're here for you. I love that from Cassian. Little golden retriever on the outside. I mean, on the inside. And fucking, I don't even know what he is on the outside. Fucking Belgian Malinois.
I was gonna say he's like a bear, but I'm like, never mind.
Oh,
Not getting started. I was gonna say he's a bear like Halston from Baldur's Gate. So it's a
yeah.
different type of bear.
I'll be in the woods with that bear.
Same.
I picked the bear anyways, but I'll be in the woods with that bear for sure. Oh,
Period.
man. Moving on to the ladies of the inner circle, we have Moore and Amryn definitely showing up a little bit more in this stretch of chapters. Moore at this point is definitely a good friend to Feyre. Like, I will say she's protective of her. Like, when Amryn kind of snaps at her and is, you sound like Tamlin, Moore's, you better take that shit back or I'll throw your ass in the river. She's not playing. Don't talk to my girl like that. And we love her for that. Feyre needs friends like that, even though Amryn means well. And what Amryn said did get Feyre to come to the realization that she was denying her sisters the choice of whether they wanted to do it or not, which is like a good thing. She was harsh about it. And Moore was there to like be like, you need to apologize to her like immediately. And so I love that. We all need a friend like that. Who's gonna stand up for us. Don't talk to my girl like that. What the fuck do you think you are? And yeah, it's also really interesting that she doesn't want to go to the Court of Nightmares. I don't know if it's because where we left things with Kier last time, with Rhysand really fucking him up for how he treated Feyre, or she really just doesn't want Rhys to go and ask her dad for help because she doesn't want to be indebted to him. I don't know, but she seems very like not with the idea that they're going to ask the Court of Nightmares for help. So that's really interesting to me.
She also mentioned that the warband and the King of Nightmares is full of the worst people ever.
Yeah.
Like, wondering if that has to do with it, because she said she had to fight alongside them, and it was really difficult because it was just full of really bad dudes. So
Yeah.
I'm like, "Oh, well, anyway."
Yeah. Yeah, that's
But,
shitty.
I feel bad for her in this situation because I'm just like, "Damn, that kind of sucks, girl." Like, you're just like, "Okay, yeah, it's fine."
Mhm. Yeah,
But
she
yeah.
doesn't really have another choice. Reese tells her she can stay behind, and she's no, if you're gonna go talk to my
Yeah.
family, go too. And so she feels like she has to. And it is an unfortunate situation, but I get both sides. I get why she doesn't want to go. I get why she's afraid to ask them for help. And I also understand why Reese says we need every single person that we can get on our side because the King of Hybern is right now, he's winning. Like we're losing and he's winning. And
Mhm.
so it sucks, but it's just like the same way that like I feel like when we get into it, I'm sure they'll even go more into it, but I know that like Reese and Cassian and Asriel, they don't want to enlist the Illyrian soldiers. Like the Illyrians treat them like shit, like they give them problems, like they're like assholes to them. But if it's gonna mean like winning the war, like they don't even have a choice. This is what y'all are here for. Like we're enlisting you guys. So I put it in the same bracket. Like it sucks for everybody. It sucks that these people have to be involved, but the people of the Night Court, like, they're just citizens. They're not fighters. They're not like we saw when they attacked the Sidra, like, they're not equipped to go to war. So we're gonna have to get the people we can, like, to step up. And so if that means we have to enlist people we don't like, people we don't care for, then it is what it is, man. It's war. Another thing that really stood out about more to me in this chapter is when we learn a little bit more about her past and about like how caring she is, especially when it comes to the priestesses that work in the House of Wind library. Moore wasn't only the person that found Clotho, but she literally made Rhysand offered it to her, but she hunted down the people that did that to them and took care of them. And so, like, Moore doesn't play that shit. And then not only did she like do that, but then when she came back, she spent actual time with her, like helping her come back from her trauma and overcome the situation that happened to her. And she really put time and effort into that. And so it's very clear that Moore like cares about that kind of stuff because that's even like when she gets like, I don't want to say triggered, but when she gets so worked up about what Amarin says to Feyre, that's fucked up. Like, you don't use somebody's trauma as a way to manipulate them or hurt them or make insult them. What Tamlin did to Feyre traumatized her, and it's not cool of Amarin, even if she was right, to use that against her in that way. So, like, I think that's part of the reason that Moore was so vehement about, like, you need to apologize to her. Like, you need to do that because we know that, like, Moore herself has gone through shit and has, we don't know the full story, but we know that at the very least, her family mistreated her. She was left on that border regardless of who did it or what happened, we don't know, but we know that she was left there and that she does still bear those like scars and that burden. And so it's just really like interesting and sweet to get to see that side of her, which I already know because of how she treats Feyre. But these are people that essentially she would have no attachment to, and she still puts herself out there and like cares so much about them just as a fellow woman. And I love her for that.
Amber Amren's kind of in this a little bit too as more, but she's more attached to Nesta in these chapters than anyone else, which I really like their friendship. They're both really weird, creepy, and stare at people. I like that. They make you feel uncomfortable. They're just like, "Why are you looking at me, bit?"
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Anyway, I love Amren. Amren's really cool. Like,
Yeah.
I like that she's training Nesta, starting to train her in these chapters to figure out, like, what the fuck is her powers, and she needs to prepare herself because 'cause they're also taking her to the Court of Nightmares to try to see if she can find magical objects, which you can,
Yeah. Yeah.
but they
Not
spend a lot of time together.
Yeah, no, Amryn is a different beast, bro, which is funny because she quite literally is a different creature. But her mentality is just like straight up different to the rest of the inner circle. We should just kill the King of Autumn and like instate Lucian. Throw a coup right now. Take him out. We're strong enough. Get rid of his ass. Put him in there. He'll do what we want him to do. She gives no fuck about protocol. She's okay. We're doing this. And she's not fucking around when it comes to what everybody else wants to do. And I think Nesta even brings up the same thing, which shows another similarity between them. But she's like, why can't we just go kill the King of Hybrid? And I forget who it was, but they're like, you'll get the killing blow if you want it, but we can't just waltz into his territory and just fucking kill him. It doesn't work like that. So it's just really funny that they're on the same page when it comes to that. And it just shows that like their mentality is more similar than the rest of the inner circle. And I just think that's a great bonding moment for them. I know that we know that for the rest of this book, they're like freaking frack. They really get along really well.
Mhm.
And then there's like a big separation between them and Frost and Starlight unfortunately. But for right now, they're going to end up being besties. So, yeah. And then finally moving on to the main characters, we have Feyre and Rhys, who are obviously finally both really present in this story together. I would say that Feyre is still really learning the differences in her relationship with Rhys versus the way her relationship was with Tamlin. She talks about how there was this weirdness between them after she snapped at him for what he said about Nesta. And he was like, I didn't have a problem with it, but I felt you being weird. So it makes sense. But she's so used to dealing with this man who, if you questioned him, was going to end up having a fucking problem that she's like treating Rhys like he's the same person and Rhys just isn't. And so that's a really interesting dynamic to see and to see how she is dealing with that.
Feyre is, she's young. She's a teenager still. Okay, so she is trying to figure out how the fuck she's supposed to deal with politics of war, especially with Faye. I don't know half these people are talking about. I don't know what's happening. So she's still trying to learn everything. It's a lot of info. We're learning with her. We don't know what the fuck's going on either. And it's a lot of info dumping this book, but she makes her way. She proves herself to be the high lady of the night court, but she definitely they need to give her like a little history class or something about different
Yeah.
rulers, where they come from and what they're known for. I feel like that'd be beneficial, but yeah.
Yeah. It sucks for her because you have to think that this girl literally just learned how to read. So of course she doesn't
Straight up.
fucking know much. Even when Reese takes her to the library, she's this is my first time in a library. And Reese says, don't they have libraries in the human world? And when he said that, I was like, bitch, you literally taught her to read 2 minutes ago. What was she have any business in the library? Like this girl was out in the woods hunting for food. Like you think she was just casually going to the
Yeah.
library? Come on, dude. So I don't know. I thought that was so funny, but yeah, like you said, this girl has no idea what it means, like in the world of politics. And one thing I do have to say about Feyre that I do appreciate is that she asks a lot of questions. And I also appreciate that about Nesta because that's coming to Nesta's curious about everything. And I think that's a good thing when you're in a situation like this. But they're also like, or at least Feyre is also really willing to take like other people's advice, even when she thinks that she understands something or knows how she wants to do something, she'll still stop and listen to what other people have to say. And I think that's a good sign from a person that doesn't really know what they're doing. It's good to be open to learning and open to other people who have a little
Mhm.
bit more knowledge than you, to taking their opinions and counsel into account because that's the only way you're going to rule when you have no experience ruling. I always compare shit to like other stuff, but that's literally Aegon on House of the Dragon right now, not fucking wanting to listen to his advisors, thinking he knows everything when, bro, you don't know the first thing about ruling. Your father didn't teach you anything about ruling. And so maybe you should take the counsel of people that know a little bit better than you. And I never thought I would say, listen to Otto Hightower, but here we are.
Not to get into House of Dragon, but also like with Christian Cole literally just be like, I'm a hand of the king, but I'm also a dumbass. I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, this is what's about to unfold is what happens when people that don't fucking understand politics and like the way that things go get into power and just try to do whatever they
Period.
want. It doesn't go well. So I'm
Especially
sure we'll
when you're
see more
told
about that.
that when your son Aegon isn't the Aegon you're being talked about, then you choose to ignore it. Anyway,
I
that's why we're
can't.
Team Black.
Yeah, always. We're here for the blacks. But anyways,
Okay,
okay.
yeah.
And then going to Reese, obviously, he is really I feel like keeping some things close to his chest. Like Reese is always keeping shit close to his chest, but I feel like we get some prime examples of like him having plans that are going on and things that he's doing on his own that he's not letting the rest of the inner circle and especially Feyre in on. And I don't know if that's a good thing because they are partners and I feel like he needs to be honest with them, but he also treats himself like a sacrificial lamb. He is literally willing to sacrifice himself if it means saving everybody else, which I do think is a bold and noble thing. But at the same time, come on, dude, stop trying to figure out everything on yourself, out by yourself. If it comes to that, okay. But like, why are you like going to that option when like we haven't even figured anything else out? I want you to live. Favors, I want you to live. Your brothers want you to live. Everybody, we need you around to be High Lord of the Night Court. So maybe don't just go in guns blazing. Fuck it. If it doesn't work out, I'll just take one for the team. Let's try to figure out another way around this. Lean on your friends for help. That's why we're here. You're not the only powerful motherfucker in the group. We got Nesta, we've got Amryn, we've got more, we've got Cassian and Azure. Like you have like literally the most powerful court in all of, and you're over here just like, I have to, I'll go in and kill myself. No, calm down, lean on the people that you have put in positions of power that you can trust and don't try to do everything by yourself. So that's another reason why I think that conversation that Cassian has with Beira in the earlier chapters is like, or well, in a chapter in this judge chapters, but is so important because it's just showing I can't have you doing the same kind of bullshit that Rhysand does. Like, we're all here to help each other. Let's do that. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing what Cassian was talking about.
Yeah. There's a lot of big egos going around.
For sure.
They need to be humbled a little bit, y'all. Let's just chill. Just okay.
I don't even know though if I would consider Reese's like that his ego. I almost feel like that's like his I don't know how to explain it. Like he just feels
Like
like
pride, maybe?
Yeah, like, pride, but, like, I feel like he almost feels better me than, like, the people I care about. I don't know if pride's the right word. It's just so I call him, like, a sacrificial lamb. It's just I don't know what that is that makes people do that because it's I don't think he doesn't trust the people that he puts in power. He talks all the time about how Amryn might be even more, like, Amryn even scares him, but it's just like for whatever reason, I don't wanna put my friends on the line if I can go in here and do this by myself, and it's just, "But you don't have to do that." I don't know. I don't know what it is, but I'll talk about it a little later because maybe I have a little theory on it, and I don't know. It's unhinged as fuck, but I'm excited to talk about it.
So yes, lots of big personalities in the fucking inner circle and outside the inner circle. It's just like a freaking personality clash. But you know what? We're here for it. We're here for the drama. I love it. So moving on to foreshadowing and world building themes, there is actually a lot in these span of chapters that we're going to touch on. So something that you mentioned earlier in character discussion is that you mentioned how Amryn suggests that they kill the High Lord of Autumn and just make Lucian take over, which like I so agree. And Rhysand answers with quote, "I'll take that into consideration." And I'm really hoping that this is like a little foreshadowing for Lucian's future. I could so see them killing his dad. Probably most likely gonna happen. I would
Mhm.
bet money on it. And then Lucian can take over if he wants. And that'd be like so cute. I would love that for him. So I'm really hoping
Yeah.
that's foreshadowing for a future book. I was like, yes, I'd eat that up.
Yeah, I will say I do think that if Lucian takes over court, the Autumn Court is the least likely, though it is an option, only because unless something happens to Eris, I feel like Eris is gonna end up being the one that would take over if something were to happen. I feel like what Amryn was suggesting is a straight up coup where they just go in there and take out anybody who could be like opposition to power. And maybe they give Eris the choice, look, you can either fucking step down or you can die. And maybe they still do that, but with their teaming up with Eris that's happened in the last couple books, I
Hmm.
don't know, but I would love I we all know. Kill Baron anyways. Get Eris in there. Let
Yeah,
Lucian be High
fucking
Lord of Spring and
Tyler or
let
whatever.
yeah, honestly, like I said, I think I said it a couple episodes ago. I just don't want to see anything bad happen to Helion, but let him be High Lord of whatever, and just yeah, I'm here for
Yeah,
it. I would love for him to be High Lord of Autumn. I just don't even know if he like I don't
would
know, but
want
yeah,
that
I get
necessarily.
yeah, exactly. If he would want to be around those people that did that to him, and because they all condemned him when he let his girl
Hmm.
Jasmina die too. So I don't know, but either way, I would be cool with it if that did happen.
Yeah, his dad just needs to die, pretty much. But anyway, this other thing I'm about to mention, we talked about it on a previous episode. I don't remember which one. I will try to find which one. But it's about Miriam and how she died and she was brought back to life by an object that was made by the cauldron. And we don't know what this object is. I know we theorized like what the fuck this object could be. And we came up blank. Like, we don't fucking know. So if you think you might know what the fuck this means, please let us know. But this shit is such a fucking question. Like, just her story is, there's just a lot. And I'm just so confused. And the cauldron's a lot. And there's a lot I think is going to be happening in the future books where we will figure out whatever the fuck this object is. But yeah,
Yeah,
period.
1,000%. I literally have no thoughts on what I could think it would be. If it's something that's been mentioned already, I'm drawing a blank, and I can't theorize something that doesn't exist. So I have no idea, but I know I we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out. This wasn't just
It's
a
gonna matter. Yeah,
yeah.
it's it's gonna matter. And then also this is like I want to say this is kind of more of maybe a theory that I just want to say really quick because it doesn't have to do with any of the other books. So I'm just gonna say it here. So during one of the chapters, Feyre and Lucian are like chit chatting, and she says, "quote As if sensing my thoughts, Lucian said, blah blah blah." Okay, I'm over here like, okay. So we do have questions about his metal eye. We do know that there might be some type of magic that comes with it. We've also talked about that in a previous episode. So I'm over here, bro. What if Lucian is also a Daemati? And it would make fucking sense because he always was like very like it seemed like he always knew what was going on, but he wouldn't say. But he was like tuned in to knowing, oh,
Mm.
Feyre might be on our side. I don't know, like, just throughout the books, he's been so observant and he knows things without being told. And I'm like, bro, what if he can read minds and he hasn't told anyone that this whole time?
So the only thing I have to say about that is I think that later in this book, Feyre goes into Lucian's mind. I don't remember, I think it's this book, but if it wasn't Miss Fury. So I think Feyre literally goes into Lucian's mind, and unless he's so good that he just let her in because he didn't want to give away the fact that
Mhm.
he could block her out, which is a possibility because they call him cunning, they call him sly like a fox. So it could be that. But she goes into his mind and she doesn't sense anything like that. But that would be very interesting to me. Now, I will say, I do feel like, and I wish I had read this chapter now because this is such a good thing. I feel like she says there's something a little bit different about his mind than other minds she's been in. And so I wonder if that could have something to do with it.
Mm.
But I feel like you're maybe onto something with that because that's,
I
hmm,
don't know. I'm like, I feel like it has to
I
do
like
like
that.
with his eye, and somehow he's able to like, if not read minds like a Daimoni, maybe he's able to like sense people's thoughts without knowing 100% what they are, but just yeah, of what this person is thinking. Anyway.
Maybe it's like he can see like auras. So if you're emotional or something, you turn a different like I know that
Okay.
that's out there, but there's I've
No, I
read
mean,
or seen shit where it's maybe he can't quite read your mind, but he can like sense your emotions. And maybe it has something to do with sight.
mhm,
Maybe his eye can like see. I don't want it to be like straight up x-ray vision, but I'm just like maybe there's something that he can see when people are experiencing certain emotions that he can
mhm.
tune into a little bit more. And maybe he could sense like Feyre's weariness or that she wasn't really in love with Tamlin. Things like that that would be like not quite telling him for sure that what he thinks is true, but keying him into something's not quite like what you're saying it is. So I really like that. That's super, super interesting. And I could definitely see like what if we finally get his point of view and it really is something like that? Like he straight up is I see the aura around them or I can read their minds. Ah, I would die. Like
I
way
would
to keep the fucking
oh,
secret, dude.
dude, I would like not even like that, but I would die just for Lucian POV. Can we get a
Oh,
Lucian like his own little like book? Like I need a little novella just about Lucian. I would
yeah.
oh my god, imagine I would honestly like I'm not like I don't know if I really want to see another person's POV from like the whole book series, but I would literally actually read his novella if it was about his time in the Supreme Court from his POV. I would
Yeah,
actually read that. That would be so interesting. Okay,
it really
anyway.
would.
Ah, so yeah, just keep that in y'all's mind. If you see anything else about Lucian having magical abilities, let us know because this will probably be brought up more. Because I think in this book is where we learn that his eye has, I think like it was like magical symbols or something on it, which I'm not gonna say
Mhm.
anything about that now, but it makes me think about other stuff. Okay, so anyway, moving on a little bit of foreshadowing about Nesta and Elaine. Obviously, Amber says to Nesta about the King of Hybern, quote, if you want the killing blow, girl, it's yours to have. Elaine does technically kill the King of Hybern, but then Nesta like, chops off his fucking head. That's just fucking foreshadowing. This bitch beheaded this man, period.
True.
Yeah. And then there's also a mention of Lucian maybe taking Elaine back to the Spring Court. Okay, I'm hoping this is foreshadowing. I'd be okay with that. I lean both ways, y'all. Okay, we say this every episode. Don't come at us. But with the whole Asriel, Lucian, Elaine, I literally don't fucking care. I don't care. But I could totally see Lucian, Elaine making their lives happen at the Supreme Court. It would make so much fucking sense. And the fact that there was even a mention of that in this book makes me think that might be the path that we're gonna go down because of the way they have foreshadowed Nesta's fate. It's really similar to the way that she's foreshadowing Elaine's fate. So I'm like, okay, the
Mhm.
writing style is the same for both. So I'm like, that's what I'm leaning towards. She's gonna end up with Lucian, but we'll see. Either way, I don't fucking care. So don't yell at me. But then
Yeah.
the last thing I wanted to mention is just obviously one of the chapters, Cassian and Feyre are training, and then Nesta pops in and she's just kind of like, you guys are just talking. What the fuck? And she stands there, and that's basically like half of her book, Game Silver Flames. And I foreshadowing for her. She's just
Real.
kind of there and is like yelling at them. Not yelling, but she's just being like, "What the fuck's happening?"
Yeah, no, that's
And that's
true. Like Nesta the training
but, you know,
ring is a
eventually
vibe. It's hilarious.
yeah, but eventually she trains. But yes, definitely lots of foreshadowing for the sisters in this chapter, even though Elaine was, like, super MIA. I know we didn't, like, even mention her in the character discussions because she literally wasn't in this fucking chapter.
She
She was
wasn't
in
in
her
the stretch
room.
of chapters. She's like by the window, just like staring
Just
outside.
like
That's all she's doing. Just straight up, just I want to go back to the human lands. I want to go back. It's giving Twilight. It's giving Bella just there's
it
a
really is.
possibility. So moving on from that, we do get quite a bit of little like bits and pieces of foreshadowing and just like themes from the real world and all of that in chapter 20. So the first thing is that the like very much like real world comparisons is like what I'm starting to realize as we're talking about what was going on in the war between the humans and the Fae to free the human slaves. And it's just really interesting. But one thing that really stood out to me was the statement that humans were kept out of the libraries to keep slaves from knowledge, just like in the real world. We know that anytime that there's an oppressive structure that has slaves or has people that they're trying to keep down, one of the first things that they do to keep them that way is to prevent them from educating themselves so that way they can move on. That's where book burning comes from. That's where them not teaching slaves to read and things like that are. It's because knowledge is power in reality. And so the easiest way to control a bunch of people is to provide them with only the knowledge that you want them to have. So it's just really interesting to me that Reese is explaining this to Feyre and she's like, why are these people acting like this? And he said, because books were full of magic and things that they wanted to keep humans from knowing. Reese slid his hands into his pockets, leading me down a corridor lit only by the bowls of Phalite, upraised in the hands of a beautiful female statue. Their forms high fae and fairy alike. The scholars and librarians refused to keep slaves of their own, some for personal reasons, but mainly because they didn't want them accessing the books and the archives. This is literally an example of them. They're so paranoid, so determined to keep these people from gaining knowledge that like they don't even allow for them to come help them in their own space. They're like, keep them out of here because if they come in here, they will possibly read and learn why everything that we like have, like they can access, they can use against us. And so that's just really interesting to me. And then quite literally, like I was talking about book burning, they burned the libraries when they lost the war to prevent them from gaining knowledge. So again, it's just another example of we would rather burn this knowledge, destroy it, than let you get your hands on it and possibly use it to uplift yourselves or in turn it and use it on us. Really interesting, very like comparative to the real world, to multiple examples of slavery. It's been happening across time since the beginning of time, people owning people in the worst ways imaginable, and just like how that is easier when you keep them from educating themselves. And so I just thought that was really interesting and just a real world example of like how she's bringing that into these books and just how accurate it is. Also, in this chapter, we learn about the being that is at the bottom of the library. And we know now that is Bryaxis, but for recent Feyre at this point don't know that Bryaxis is down there. But it's so funny. Like Reese is explaining like how he dared Cassian to go down there and Cassian went down and then busted ass trying to get back up because he was so afraid of what he saw down there. And I do think that's really interesting that where we leave this chapter specifically is Feyre talking about using the monsters of Prithian against Hybern because they have the numbers, but we have the monsters. And I just think her finding out about Braxis being down there is foreshadowing for the fact that she's going to try to go down there and get Bryaxis to fight with them, and she succeeds. Yeah, and then this is just like really touchy, hard subject. I didn't just want to pass over it, but we learn a lot about the priestesses that live in the library in this chapter and about the trauma that they've all experienced. And now having read all the books, we know that Gwen is one of these priestesses. and that they have all just experienced very traumatic events. Clotho's assault, when we run into her again in Silver Flames and she's not talking, but she seems well adjusted. And it's just, I'm so happy that Reese has provided this sanctuary to these women that really need it, that don't have anywhere else to go, and that they bring them there and they take care of them and they give them the power and the freedom to make choices about their own lives. That's one of the things I love about Rhysand and just his mentality when it comes to ruling his kingdom. It's something that Feyre touches on in this stretch of chapters. Is just like with him, it's always about choice. It's always about giving people the choice to do what they want to do, to live their own lives. And that's something that's not very like prominent in Prithian as a world based on older times and stuff. Like it's not, it's just, it wasn't around back then. And so that's one of the reasons I love Reese. He's not perfect, obviously, and he will make tough decisions when it comes down to it because he is in charge of protecting a lot of people. And so sometimes he does have to make difficult decisions. But I do like to think that at the end of the day, he really does want to do his best to allow people to make their own choices. And you have to live with the consequences, whether they're good or bad or not. Yeah, and then I talked about it earlier, so we don't really have to dwell on this too much, but Reese literally says it. He plans to sacrifice himself, like when it comes to saving Prithian. So if that's not foreshadowing, I don't know what is. Like he literally is, yeah, man. If it comes down to it, like I'll die. I'll be the one who takes on the brunt of the power just to save everybody else. So that's quite literally what ends up happening, as we know. So definitely some foreshadowing there. And then one thing I wanted to touch on that was like really interesting to me is okay, I don't know if this is where we talk about it because everybody always talks about how there's a line in one of the books where Sarah J. Maas literally tells us like somebody's going to betray the inner circle. But I did
Mhm.
notice in chapter 21 when Feyre reveals to Reese that her plan is to involve the bone carver, they make a plan to go to the prison and they're going to tell Cassian, but they haven't told the other people in the inner circle. And she specifically goes to Amryn to try to get some more information from her about who's in the prison and what's down there and just anything she can get. But she refuses to tell Amryn what exactly she's doing or why she's asking these questions. And she says, the fewer people who knew about my trip tomorrow to see the carver, the safer it was, the less chance of Hybern catching wind of it. Not for any fear of betrayal, but there was always risk. I don't know. That line got me. It's like, but dot. There's always risk. So why are you worried about your own inner circle, the people that you're supposed to trust more than anything else? You're worried that they could possibly betray you. And it's very interesting to me that it was specifically Amryn. I don't know if that's foreshadowing or if it means anything, but it definitely stood out to me, especially reading it this time with the knowledge of there's a high possibility that somebody's going to end up betraying the inner circle. I know a lot of people think it's more. It's hard for me to believe that it would be Amryn after she literally sacrificed herself to save everybody. But it's just really interesting to me that Faye threw this line in there, which is I'm not worried about anybody betraying us, but there's always a possibility. But yeah, really weird, really interesting stuff. Definitely going to be keeping my eye on that.
I'm so curious because it's like if someone does betray the inner circle, I'm so like back and forth of who it might be. But I would love that.
Yes.
I'm not one for a betrayal trope, but I would be in this book because that shit would be crazy. I would be like, "Oh my god, person, what the fuck?" I'd be so upset, but in a
Yeah.
good way though, because I'd be like, "What? I have no idea who it would be." Like, 'cause
I
if
love a
they told
betrayal trope, so I'm definitely
Cassian
here for it.
if they told Cassian to go into the prison, I feel it doesn't rule him out that he wouldn't be the one to betray them, but I feel like it's less likely because they told him.
Mhm.
I'm like, more I have questions about. She's probably my top, I don't know, my top few people, maybe.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I could see it
I,
being
I don't
Azriel
know.
too because of
I can
like
see it
the
being
shadows
Abigail.
and nobody ever knows where he is. He's literally the spy
I can see
master.
it being
I could see it being
Abigail.
him, But also, I feel like if it was him, I feel like honestly, I feel like if it's any of them, it's
I
gonna
don't
be
know
for a good
though.
reason. Like, I can't just see any of them just willy-nilly betraying the
Like
inner
full
circle.
on
I feel like it's
evil.
gonna be like, yeah, I can't see that, but I don't know. It it
Hmm.
it is a very interesting question. I don't know. I don't know. More is gone for
So
so much of
interesting.
the rest of the story after we get
Right.
out of this book that I'm like, it could be what is she doing over there on the other continent? I don't know. And then Amryn, it doesn't have her powers anymore. Maybe she is willing to do some shit to try to get her powers back. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know what the motivation for anybody would be or what it would be, but I just think that it's so interesting that line was just casually thrown in there. Like, I'm not worried about being betrayed, but there's always the risk that somebody could betray you. And it's just, huh, that's so interesting. And like you said, I'm not ruling Cassian out completely, but at the same time, like, and this is no shade to Cassian, but like I just don't see him having the wherewithal to pull off some big ass betrayal like that. You know how smart you have to be to do that? Like, I could see Lucian doing it. I could see Reese doing it. I could see more like Aaron. I can't even really see Feyre doing it if I'm being 100% honest. Probably because I spend so much time in her point of view. Like, I can't fathom why she would need to do that. But I like of the people
I
that
mean, she
like
is
are
good
left,
at that though. But
yeah, but I
I don't
don't
know.
see her motivation because it's her court.
I
As
don't
with
see I don't see that
Reese,
happening either.
I feel like Reese
I
is
I
keeping
could
secrets.
yeah, I don't know. It's if it ends up being Reese, I feel like it's gonna be not in the way we're thinking it's gonna be. Like I don't know how to describe it because there is like the theory of the evil Reese theory, but I don't think that he would be like I don't think he'd be like king of Hybern evil. I think he might be more I don't know, not like that much of a villain, but like they're I don't know how to describe it. But then at the same time, I'm like, I wouldn't hate if it ends up being Elaine because I feel like she's so overlooked that I'm like, that would be why if it ends up being Elaine because she has connections to these people, obviously, but not that many people. Like she obviously her sisters Farah and Nesta, but is she even that close to them right
I
now?
guess that's like my thing is she even part of the inner circle? Really?
Right. I
They
don't know.
specifically say
I feel
it's
like some people
somebody
would
in the inner
say
circle because
I
even
would
Feyre in Night in Silver Flames is she doesn't fit in with the rest of us. I don't know if they consider her part of the inner circle, to be
hmm.
100% honest.
I mean,
Nesta probably is more.
I would consider them both part of the inner circle now,
See, I
but
don't.
they're on like the outer I do. I do now,
Yeah. I don't. If anything, I
but I
see
don't know.
Nesta because Nesta actually is involved in training and the war and
Mhm.
all of that. I don't see them other than just using her for her abilities every once in a while. I don't see Elaine like, I mean, I guess she's there with them at the holidays and stuff like that. So she's definitely
Didn't she
family, but
yeah,
like, is she in
she doesn't
when
have
they
like an
sit
of
down and they have meetings? She's not like in the inner circle.
I mean, but she is in the meetings for Silver Flame, but she
I thought
doesn't
she
have
was
like an
just in
official
one
title.
meeting. I thought she was just in one meeting that was like Nesta's intervention. She wasn't like in like the meetings where they like decide what's going to happen because like she disappeared
I
for
think she was because I remember the reason why Nesta ended up being the person to find the made objects is because she didn't want Elaine to do it, but Elaine was like, "No, I'll do it," and Nesta was like, "No, I'm not. I don't want you to." So I think she was there for that.
that is
I just
true.
don't think she has like an official title yet because I feel like Nesta has an official title. Isn't she like emissary? I don't fucking. She is emissary in this book at some point.
To the
Okay, I don't
human
know.
world.
I don't know. I don't know, y'all.
Yeah. I could see it being
Anyway,
Elaine. I could see it being Elaine. She's the one
I
person
can
who's
see it
not
being
technically
Elaine.
tied to anybody there. Like I said, I don't necessarily consider her like part of the inner circle, but like I could see if people are considering her that, then I could see her
Mhm.
definitely being a possibility. But I don't know. At the end of the day, the possibilities are endless, to be fair. There's 6 of these bitches, and it could be any one of them. So, I don't
It could be
know.
literally
Could just
anyone.
be could
Literally
literally be
anyone.
anybody.
There's
So,
not one person I'm gonna rule out, but I would say bottom of my list, probably Cassie.
honestly, I'm with you there because
I
I
mean,
love him, but he's just
Cassie's
such a
too
fucking cinnamon
loyal.
roll. he's so
Yeah,
golden
he's too
retriever.
loyal.
I can't
He's
even
too
see him,
loyal.
like, getting smoked to be like, I hate to say it, but, like, in Silver Flames, he gets a little bit of flack for this, like, when they make him the I forget what they call it, but, like, the emissary to the other courts and stuff, like, he doesn't necessarily wanna do it. I don't have any kind of experience with this, and, like, Reese is "It'll be good for you," but, like, Cassian's just doesn't have that, like, conniving, cunning to, like, betray
Yeah,
people that he loves. I don't see that from him, so like you said, at the bottom of my list is probably Cassian,
bottom of my list.
but everybody else, even him, are technically on the table. I just would the way my jaw would just fall off my face if it was Cassian, I would just be like,
Oh,
"I didn't think
I
you had it in
wouldn't
you."
know. Oh my god. Okay, I can't talk about this anymore because now if my brain is, like, thinking about other things. Okay,
Yeah.
anyway, let's move on, let's move on.
All
Okay.
right, guys. For our final portion here, we're going to go ahead and get into some very unhinged theories and mass verse connections. So I want to go ahead and give another spoiler warning right now. Thank you for staying with us this far. We have enjoyed breaking down these chapters with you guys, but this is your warning to leave if you have not finished all three of Sarah J. Maas's series, including the most recently released House of Flame and Shadow. We will be touching on events that occur in all three series starting now. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just talk about this because this is definitely a House of Flame and Shadow like connection theory. And I was racking my brain through this. So this is a very unfinished theory in my like mind, but Jezebel, we learned that Jezebel was just a human who was actually cursed by Apollyon because he thought that she was like hiding knowledge from him, and so he cursed her to live forever. So she was literally just a human, but everybody in Midgard calls her a witch, a sorceress, somebody who uses magic. And so there's a line in these chapters where Feyre points out to Rhysand, she says, but they don't have magic. Humans don't have magic. Rhys responds, some do. Usually the ones who can claim distant Fey ancestry, but some of those spells don't require magic from the wielder, only the right words or use of ingredients. So, is it possible? We know that she was this like ancient priestess, like that came or that was involved. Is it possible that she is one of these priestesses? Like she's from Prithian? Is that like a stretch? Because it just makes sense to me. If she's a human that can use magic because she has access to certain texts, is it possible that she was like from another world, which would be Prithian in this scenario? And that we know she had the Book of Breathings and the God, I can't remember the other book from Throne of Glass, but we know she had them in her library
Oh,
when
it was a Walking Dead, right?
yes, okay, The
Something
Walking
like
Dead.
that?
So she had
Okay.
both of those books. So is it possible that she either has walked through worlds or that she came from Prithian and wasn't one of those people that were like bred to fuel the Asteri? I just I don't know why this stood out to me when I was reading this.
Oh my god, I don't know. Okay, I'm trying to piece this together of what we know about Jessica and what we know about everything else, and I'm like, there's so much.
Yeah, but it is a much newer book where we
Um,
got a lot of information. I know a lot of people were theorizing that she was a witch, like the witches from Throne of
right.
Glass, because I think I saw a whole article that was like, or a whole Reddit post that was like, Jezebel Roga is literally another name for Baba Yaga, which is like the boogeyman, but also like Baba Yellowlegs, like kind of relation there. So a lot of people were theorizing that, but I don't know. I'm not ruling it out. I just think that it's really possible that she happened to be one of these priestesses from Prithian and that she somehow made her way over there because we know she's old, like old.
Right, she's old as shit. So my only thing that I'm thinking of how it would work, I'm trying to piece this together. Okay, the only thing that I'm confused about is that she's a human, but humans were kept out of the libraries in Prithian.
True,
Like we learned that in chapter 20. So I'm like,
but that's
I
only
just
from
and then they burned
500
it.
years. That's only from 500 years ago. Prithian goes back
Mhm.
we know as long as 15,000 years, if not more than that. This was at the time when they were fighting the war to keep slaves or whatever. I don't know. It also says something about distant Fey ancestry. I don't know if that could have something to do with it. But also, there were human libraries too. So I don't know. It's definitely a unhinged kind of theory, twisted. It would have to have a lot of things make sense,
Mhm.
but it just makes sense that she's friends with Adis. We know that he was around like around 15,000 years ago. He was literally in love with
Mhm.
Thea. We also know that he has the ability to open the Northern Rift. How did they become friends? How did they meet?
Wait, really quick, I can't remember. There's so many books in my head now, like, I can't remember all these things. I need an encyclopedia of everything.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, Jessica, she's human,
She says
but
yes. Yeah, she says she's just a human, but
doesn't
she
she technically
has
have
the ability.
magical abilities? Because she's
Yeah,
able to turn people into animals.
that's what I'm saying. That's why this statement, humans don't have
Huh,
magic, some do. Usually the ones that can claim distant fate ancestry. That's why it made me think of Jezebel because she is a human who has magic.
right. Okay. Oh my god, that's such a brain fart. Dude, I don't know. I Is there such a question about Jessica and, like, how she got the books because she is gone a lot in Crescent City, like, she's always gone, and that's why, like, she has Bryce at her fucking library all the time, and it's like, is this bitch just, like, hanging out, like, going to Prithian? Is she hanging out with what's that one librarian in House of Wind? She's, like, kinda bitchy too. What's her
Oh,
fucking name?
Meryl.
Ma Meryl, yeah, I could see them being friends. Is she hanging out with
Yeah.
Meryl? Like, we
Yeah.
don't know.
No,
Oh my god, and I
there's the
I hope they
questions.
get answers because it definitely was a bomb that we've learned of Jessica and Flame and Shadow, and I can't remember. Parthos was also burned down, right?
Yeah, and that was when she escaped supposedly. But where was Porthos? They don't ever tell us, right? The Great Library of Porthos, like they don't
Uh,
ever. So I've seen
like we don't get full map, so no, not technically.
I've seen people talk about how like the Great Library of Porthos was possibly in Prithian, but not like where the courts are, like where the other continents are. I don't know if it's still called Prithian, but yeah, I don't know. Like the other continents.
Okay, the Great Library of Parthos was destroyed 15,000 years ago. So Jessica is like a trillion years old. Oh my god. Maybe I don't know. I could see her being from Prithian potentially, or at least she's been to Prithian. Like maybe she started off at this library in Parthos and then she somehow made her ass to Prithian somehow. And she was
Yeah.
able to find a way to go between worlds. I don't know.
Yeah. We know that she knows Apollyon because he's the one who cursed her. And we know that she knows Adis. I don't know. I don't know, but it just was interesting to me. I was like, There she's like, humans don't know magic. And I'm like, I know one human who knows magic. I don't know. That just stood out to me a little bit of a unhinged theory. It might not even be a theory. It might be more of a connection because we already know
Right.
Jessica's fate, obviously. So it's not necessarily a theory, but it's more of just is this a connection that like originally maybe I wasn't thinking about, but now that we know her full story, does this make sense? Could she have been from Prithian? It does make sense to me in the fact of that would be how she knew Apollyon and Adis, because how else would she know them if she hadn't been involved in that whole Thea transfer or whatever? But I need to reread House of Flame and Shadow. It's not one that I'm necessarily super looking forward to rereading anytime soon, to be
Same.
fair. I crammed so much for the
I'll
release that I don't know when I will get around to rereading it, but I will eventually reread it.
I'll reread it when the next book is announced or like when it's
Yeah.
soon gonna be. I'll read it then. But until then, I'm gonna act like
Yeah.
that book didn't exist. So
Yeah, exactly, because I'm not even sure if that book is gonna be necessarily a bridge to the next ACOTAR book. It could have nothing to do well, I mean, obviously, it has something to do with it, with the way that we left Nesta in the Bryce situation with her giving Truth Teller back and then telling
right.
Nesta to take over the Dust Court. But other than that, I'm curious how much of that will even matter when it comes to the next ACOTAR book. So I don't know if it's like one of those where you have to read. Like I would have told people like you have to read Silver Flames before you read House of Flame and Shadow. But I don't know if that's going to be the same kind of vibe with this one, but we'll see. However, eventually I will get around to rereading it. But for now, that was just like a really interesting connection and little thing that I caught that I was like, why does this remind me of Jezebel, priestess in a library who's human but has
Mhm.
magic? And then, okay, my final theory. This is my truly unhinged theory, okay? But bear with me. So we already know that Reese has psychic abilities, right? That's literally what being a Daemati is like being able to connect and go into people's minds and shit like that, okay? But does he have some abilities that are beyond the mind reading? Because, okay, there's a specific line in this stretch of chapters that made me be like, huh? Feyre's talking to him, and this is about the whole sacrificial, like, lamb situation. And she's talking to him, and she's like, you don't have to do this. Why would you do this? And he says, how can you ask me not to give everything I have to ensure that my family and people survive? She says, you've given enough. He responds with, not enough, not yet. Does Reese have some sort of future reading abilities, like ability to tell the future? Okay. The reason that I'm asking this is because there has been so many times where I've said, I feel like Reese has secrets. I feel like Reese has secrets. He's keeping shit from people. He's holding shit close to his chest. I know he knows about the other worlds before they even touch on that, even though I'm curious because in this book or in what we just read, there was a part where Amaranth literally says, make sure it's felt across worlds. So it's obvious that other people know that across worlds is a thing. But when she says that, Reese is very quick to be like, oh, I see Amaranth's been taking drama classes like down by the Sidro. Oh, let's move on to another subject. It's like, why are you trying to deter the situation from her mentioning that there's like other worlds? And so that's a secret that I think Reese has been keeping. But also, we know that Reese was seeing visions of Feyre before she ever even got to Prithian. He was literally like seeing her. That's not normal. Nobody else is with a bond is ever mentioned seeing their mate before they met their mate. It's very unique to them. And he wasn't just seeing her, he was seeing visions of her. He was like seeing her doing stuff. And is that because he's a Daemati simply, or is there something maybe Reese doesn't necessarily have future telling abilities, but maybe he has a tool that he uses to tell the future or something like that? Because I don't know. That just stood out to me when she's like, you've given enough. And he's like, no, I haven't given enough. Not yet. That implies that he realizes that he's actually going to sacrifice himself. And how would he know
So I
that?
wasn't yeah, I wasn't sure about this until you said that he was having visions of Feyre, and I was like, "Oh, fuck, that's so true," and that would make sense because that is different from anyone else in Prithian. Maybe you think he'd be, like, potentially a seer or something?
I don't, that's what I'm saying. Maybe it's not him. Maybe it's somebody he talks to or some tool he has. I don't know, but also I feel like the reason it could be like why he's so adamant about Asriel staying away from Elaine. Maybe he knows about what like the future looks like for them, like, or maybe he needs certain things to be in place. Like, I don't know. I just really like, and maybe that's why he was so pissed about Nesta going over to the other world because like he can't see shit in other worlds. I don't know. I'm definitely stretching. I'm definitely going down unhinged rabbit hole right now. But it just like popped in my head. And I was like, Reese has already been like
Mhm.
keeping shit. He's definitely secret keeper number one. I without a doubt believe that. But just reading this, I was like, that's
Yeah,
such
that's
an
interesting.
interesting way to say that. Like,
I'm gonna have to keep my eye out for future things that could point to that because it's the visions that got me kind of like, "What the fuck?"
because it's okay, that could be explained by him being Daemati, like why he would be seeing down the bond. Maybe that's just specific to a person that has Daemati abilities, and she couldn't see him back because
Right.
she doesn't or didn't at that point. But even when she got the Daemati ability, granted she wasn't able to really use it yet, but she wasn't like getting visions of him until like much later. But I don't know. That was just weird to me. I was like, and we know that he basically felt the I see, okay, that was another thing. Remember when we were talking about Akatar and we were talking about how weird it was that okay, that it was like we were like, is this a plot hole? Because we were like, he said that the bond snapped into place when Amarantha broke her neck or whatever. Like he was like, I felt the bond snap into place. But then later, when he's standing outside her room before they say goodbye, he says that he like that was when he knew. But how did you not know if the bond hadn't already snapped in place? Was it possible that he had like a vision of them being together? Or like a vision of them I don't know. But I feel like that was something that we pointed out when we were reading Akatar. We were like, it says here that he knew that they were mates when the bond snapped into place when she died, basically. But then here he is again saying, "Oh, I had to leave because that was the moment that I realized that we were gonna be together." It's like, didn't you already know that when I was dying earlier?
Right.
It didn't make sense. We pointed that out in the Akatar episode. So I don't
That's
know,
weird. I
man.
don't know. I have so many questions about him. I don't know.
Yeah, me too.
I guess
Me
we'll
too. I
find
feel like
out.
there's a lot of unexplored
Hopefully we'll
territory
find
when it
out.
comes to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we will, but also I have no idea because I can't be so confident about it because these books aren't even really about him and Feyre
Yeah.
anymore.
I'm
So
gonna
I don't know.
I think we'll still learn about a lot about Breezanne at least. I think he's still gonna have a big part in a lot of
Yeah.
future upcoming books because he there's still a lot of plot with him in it. So
Mhm.
yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, it's just very interesting. We know that the cauldron also is capable of making other magical tools and that it has before, obviously, whatever made Miriam a maid person and all of that. So it's just
Mhm.
it's so interesting to me. It could be that he has these seer abilities beyond his Daimoni powers that he doesn't tell anybody about. It could be a tool that he keeps in his office. Like we know that he has like the world shit in there. Who's to say what other magical like elements he has in his office and stuff like that. So I don't know, but I really do hope that's something that we get to see more of. And to be fair, we did learn about that magical shit in his office, like in Silver Flames, and that wasn't a book from his
Mhm.
perspective. So it's definitely possible that going forward, we learn more about
Right.
him from other people's perspectives,
That's a good
and maybe
point.
that's how the truth comes out. Like it was just fun, especially because we haven't had a theory in a couple weeks. So I was just like really like digging into my
Yeah.
bag for that one. I was like, okay, time to bring the unhinged theories back to the podcast. But as always, if you guys have any other theories or any other things that you guys think about, please let us know in the comments below. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear if you agree with our theories, if you think I'm crazy. I don't care. Go ahead. Let me know in the comments. Tell me why I'm crazy. I love feedback. So, that being said, we do hope that you guys enjoyed our discussion today. In our next episode, we will be continuing our coverage of Akawar with chapters 22 through 27. As always, email or DM us anything you'd like us to talk about in our upcoming episodes. Finally, again, if you have made it this far and you're still here with us listening, please take some time to like, comment, and subscribe. Or if you're listening on a podcast platform, please go ahead and give us a rating, leave a review. It helps us so much, and we really appreciate you taking the time to do that. Either way, please share us with your bookish friends and give us a follow over on our socials. We are active on TikTok and Instagram. We have a ton of bookish content over there to keep you guys entertained and up to date with all of the news in the romantasy community. Again, like always, we want to go ahead and leave you guys with a quote. So today's quote is, "When you erupt, girl, make sure it is felt across worlds." All right. Bye, guys.
Period. Bye.